Hey, my name's Kendall, I'm a local chef, and today going through the fridge, found some vegetables that probably need a little extra love. So today we're gonna go through a pickling recipe to turn this cucumber into pickles. But the great thing about the recipe is that it's not only for cucumbers or for making dill pickles. So today we are also going to take this asparagus and we're gonna pickle this too. So starting with the cucumber, what we're gonna wanna do is we're gonna wanna slice it nice and thin. We're gonna go through a couple different ways to cut it. First off, washed cucumber. I'm gonna slice it in half with my knife here. And then from there, if you have a mandolin in your house, it's a beautiful tool to have for this. If not, I'll go through cutting it with my knife as well. But to get that uniform thinness or uniform thickness of slice, a mandolin is probably the easiest thing to use. So, just gonna start off by slicing it. And I personally like it to be pretty thin. Not quite paper thin, but maybe just a touch thicker. So I'm gonna move these over into here. But if you like a thicker pickle, if you have a mandolin that allows it, you can adjust it to be thicker, of course. So we're gonna have something along that line, which also looks really nice. And so if you don't have a mandolin, just using your knife skills to be able to cut the actual cucumber, putting your knife forward. And doing your best to slice them as uniformly as possible. So it'll probably come out a touch thicker in most circumstances, pretty close to that thicker setting right there. All right. And we're putting those into a colander with a bowl underneath, and I'll show you why here in a moment. It has to do with pulling some of the excess moisture out of the cucumber. What's really important about this recipe to me is that every ingredient that you see that we're gonna use today, none of these were bought to make pickles. So pickles are supposed to be a way to help you prevent wasting food. It's a way to help add more life to an ingredient. So if you buy anything or if you create any waste by making a pickle, you're doing it wrong. The point of a pickle is to not waste food. If you have a carrot or a cauliflower or beets or, if you have any veggies that you really love at home in your fridge and you're just looking for something to do with them, use those in this recipe instead. So we have the cucumber sliced and it's sitting in a colander and it's gonna be sitting on top of a bowl over here. And the reason for that is we are going to cover the cucumbers and salt and sugar to help pull some of the moisture out of the cucumber. And the point of that is the more moisture you take out of the cucumber now, the more of the pickling liquid it can absorb later. So we wanna go ahead and start this process before we start on the pickling liquid. So it just has more time to do its thing and to pull out that moisture. We'll see at the end here how much of that cucumber juice is gonna sit in the bottom of this bowl. So personally for me, because I prefer a dill style pickle over maybe a bread and butter style pickle, I'm gonna use probably 3-to-1 by weight salt to sugar. I'm gonna eyeball it. If you're someone that prefers a sweeter pickle, you can use equal parts sugar and salt. Both of them pull moisture out of food at the same rate. So you don't have to use the same amount of salt and sugar that I'm using. So, big old pinch of salt. I'm gonna do that twice. So, that second big pinch of salt in there. And then I'll call it a medium pinch of sugar. Kind of like that right there. I feel like just maybe here more salt would be nice. And then I'm gonna take my hands, which I just washed a second ago here. I'm gonna mix all that up in there. And the cucumbers are gonna wanna stick together, so I'm taking my time, kind of sorting through, making sure each slice of cucumber gets separated from one another here. And since we have that salt and that sugar in here, just kind of rubbing it on each slice of cucumber, helping the salt and the sugar kind of penetrate into the cucumber and helping everything give up its moisture. And you can't really see it right now, but when you do this for yourself, you'll be able to feel it. There's already some of that moisture being wicked out of the cucumber, and it's kind of helping to create almost like a brine for the cucumbers. So the salt and sugar is moving easier through my hands and moving easier through the cucumbers, and just kind of helping to jumpstart that process of taking moisture out of the cucumber to make a pickle. So at this point, I've been massaging these cucumbers and that salt and sugar for about a minute or so. They're all kind of separate from one another. I can feel that moisture is starting to be whipped out by the salt and the sugar. And I'm kind of happy where that's at this point. Gonna let that sit, let the salt and the sugar come out for a little while longer while we prepare the pickling liquid. I'm gonna go wash my hands real quick. All right, so the pickling liquid, this is another one of those things that we are not creating waste to create pickling liquid. I'm gonna use specific aromatics and ingredients that I have in my house. But if you don't have these ingredients, or if you prefer other ingredients, it's all cool. You're just making something that tastes good, that you'll enjoy in the future. So I have a crushed clove of garlic, which I'm gonna go ahead and add to my pot right here. I have 3 dried bay leaves. I have a nice big pinch of salt and sugar. I have some whole black peppercorns, some dried rosemary, and I have some fennel seeds in here as well, just because I like those flavors. To that, I'm adding water. If you want to get crazy and you want to make a spicy pickle, throw a jalapeno, a fresh jalapeno or serrano pepper in there. It's really up to you what you want to season this with. So to that, I just added white vinegar, about equal parts water and white vinegar. And then I'm gonna use some rice vinegar as well, and a little less of that. I just personally really like the flavor of rice vinegar, and so I use it. If you prefer apple cider vinegar, that would also taste just fine. Put that on the stove, and I'm gonna take it off as soon as it looks like it's gonna start to boil. Really don't need to cook it that long. We're just trying to heat it up for a couple reasons. Number one, for food safety. These pickles are gonna hopefully sit in the fridge for, a week, 2 weeks, maybe a month if they make it that long. They won't make it that long, but if they were, we wanna make sure that we heat up the liquid so that it's safe to sit in the fridge for a while. Also, when it heats up, it's gonna extract the flavor of those aromatics and the spices and the garlic and what have not that you put in that liquid as well. But we don't wanna add the pickles to the hot liquid. Other things that we are going to season the pickling liquid with that are not going in the super hot liquid yet. I took dill because I'm making dill pickles really, or a dill pickle variant. Picked fresh dill that we had. And then I took the stems of the dill, which you're gonna see over here, just broke them in half. And then also tucked away in here, you might see some cilantro leaves. We have some cilantro in our fridge that is looking like it's at the end of its life. So I took some of those stems and I tore those up as well. Also, we had some nice healthy tangerine today. So I cut away the peels from that and then cut away most of the pith on the inside as well. We're gonna use that. And I have 2 slices of lemon as well. We're gonna add those. All right, so I took that asparagus and I chopped it down to size so it would fit in the eventual pickling jar that we're gonna use here. And that orange peel that we talked about and those lemon slices are actually gonna be used to season the asparagus. So I'm gonna go ahead and set those aside over here with that. So just took that liquid off of the heat as soon as it hit a boil, letting it rest on a towel on the table here. At this point, I'm going to add in the stems of the dill and the cilantro, and not the fronds. We're gonna keep the fronds set aside because we don't want to introduce those to that high heat. So go ahead and let those steep in there, kind of like you would tea. And then we're going to take, for the asparagus, we're gonna take those orange peels, we're gonna take those lemon slices and put them in their own special jar. We're gonna pour a splash of this in there. If you don't have a mason jar, anything that's food safe, that's heat resistant, and has a lid can be used in its place. So if you have plastic deli containers like these, that's totally fine. If you have an old jam jar, use an old jam jar. Just make sure whatever it is that it's heat safe, food safe, and has a lid. So what's next is pop like 3 or 4 ice cubes in there just to help it cool down. Once it cools down a little bit, we're gonna taste it and make sure that we have a nice balance for what we want in terms of like aromatics, in terms of acidic tang, in terms of salt, sugar. And if any of those things are out of balance when we taste it, we can add a little more of any of those respective elements. We also have a little extra tried and true proven pickling liquid that I've actually already made before. So I can also season this with that liquid And when you're making your pickles, if the amount of pickling liquid that you make is more than what fits in your jar, just put it in a container, set it aside. If you know what a pickleback is, if you're having a nice drink and you want to chase it with some pickling liquid, you have your own DIY special pickleback right here. Or you can do what I'm doing right now. You can add it into other pickling liquids that you make just to make sure they taste the way you want. You can use it as a salad dressing if you want. It's really totally up to you how you want to use it. But save it, don't waste it. All right, so at this point, the ice is melted into the pickling liquid. I can see that the bay leaf has changed color in there. The stems that I added to it are also starting to change color, which to me means they've added their flavor. Also, as a good test if it's too hot or not, put your finger in it. If it's too hot for your finger, it's too hot for the cucumber. So just wash that salt and sugar off of the cucumbers. So at this point, I'm gonna start getting ready to actually do the pickling here. I'm gonna go ahead and taste the pickling liquid to see if I like where it's at. I think it tastes fantastic. I can taste a little bit of the garlic, the bay, the dill. The black peppercorn's a little more subtle in there. As it cools down and as everything rests together, I'm pretty confident that'll come through on its own. So I'm happy with where we're at there. If you want it sweeter, this is the time to add sugar. If you want it to be brighter, more acidic, this is the time to add more vinegar. If it's just overall like a flavor explosion and you need something that's a little more tame, add a splash of water. Add only a little bit at a time. And at this point, because we've already boiled this and because it's gonna be sitting in the fridge, I'd recommend using purified water instead of water from the sink, just to make sure everything is clean. So I'm gonna start off with the asparagus because packing the asparagus in the jar has just a little more going on than the cucumber does. So what we're gonna wanna do is do our best to line those guys up as up and down as possible. And make sure you push them down so that they're not poking out over the top of the jar. So for the cucumber portion, just gonna go ahead and pack those guys in here at the bottom. This is about half of the cucumbers. I'm gonna take some of that fresh dill that I set aside earlier, throw some of that in there, top with more cucumber. Gonna wanna push everything down gently. Don't smash the cucumber so you don't rip it all to pieces. And make sure that it's packed in there real tight. Okay. Touch more of that dill on top. I'm gonna add some of that dill to the asparagus on top as well. Just gonna kind of push it in that jar. And then from here, we're going to pour the liquid over top of everything. We're gonna try not to pour in the aromatics here. There we go. All right, clean lids on top, seal it tight. Make sure you can set these upside down in here. Give it a little shake. All right, and that's how you pickle that.